All right, so speaking of Money in the Bank and Logan Paul, Ricochet was in the news this week. I got sent a clip of an interview that Ricochet did on a podcast this past week where he talked about certain wrestlers being given certain opportunities that other wrestlers are not given because certain wrestlers are typecast and essentially become reoccurring circus acts in WWE. And he went on to talk about how, WWE, everybody in WWE has these ideas and they present them to Triple H and Vince McMahon, and there's a hierarchy. The champions, kind of get preferential treatment. Then you've got your main event players. Then you've got everybody else kind of fighting for scraps on the bottom. I understand where he's coming from. I can see where he's coming from. I did eventually go on to read the entire interview, which changed my perception a little bit of the article. Because when I first saw the piece from the clip, I thought this is just Ricochet bitching and complaining. This is a guy who I perceive to be, quote unquote, boring. This is a guy who I've perceived to be a gimmick that is meant for children. This is that guy stepping out of place and bitching and complaining because he's not given a free ticket to the main event. But after I actually went back, found the full interview, watched it, saw the full context, I will admit my perspective definitely shifted. I don't think that Ricochet is being, a baby back bitch. I think that, I can see the gripe of Ricochet feeling like just another voice in the crowd. He's actually got a point. He may be a voice of reason when it comes to this topic. Ricochet, he kind of delved into the crux of the situation. He, describing how certain characters get a reset every time they enter into the ring. And I didn't know what he meant at first. And then I did some thinking and it made more sense. A guy like Ricochet who goes out and delivers week after week. There's no doubt. He's not my cup of tea, but I'm intelligent enough to watch the product and go, he's good at what he does. He's extremely good at what he does. I don't like his gimmick. He's not meant for me, but he's very good at what he does. He's a spectacle. He's a high-flying wonder. And he came out and said he doesn't get the same opportunities as a guy like Seth Rollins or AJ Styles. Because when AJ Styles loses a match or when Seth Rollins loses a match, they get to come out the next week and acknowledge the adversity they've been through. Whereas a character like Ricochet is expected to come out the next week and just flip again, right? Just do what you do and keep doing it. And so I can see the gripe. I can see the gripe from Ricochet that there isn't really the ability to evolve a character. Now, it's not something I've ever picked up on until Ricochet saw it, but I can see the gripe that Ricochet has when he discussed the cycle limits of his opportunities for storytelling and character direction, right? My only issue here is, Ricochet, I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing, maybe the way you see it. I see this a lot as you have a job security that not every wrestler who enters into the WWE is going to have. There are a lot of guys who try to put themselves into contention to be in the main event, and they end up failing and getting dropped off of the roster. High caliber talent. I think there's guys who position themselves to try to be the guy and they fall flat. And I think you're looking at yourself as a guy who's been typecast into, somebody who does just come out and flip every week, but I don't see that as being a bad thing. I understand guys like Ricochet, guys like Braun Strowman. Like Braun Strowman, look at him. He was a guy who kind of got thrust into a main event picture for a little bit, but then, once they pulled him back, Braun Strowman's really just kind of the big guy. That's what they use him for. He's not being featured in main event stories. He's just a spectacle that people come to see. In the same way that I kind of think Omos is used, right? Shinsuke Nakamura is kind of used in this same light. But these guys who are able to carve out small niches within the wrestling industry, that's job security. Don't look down on being a spectacle that people come to see. Don't look down on being independent from needing a title to feel important. I don't think that Ricochet with the Intercontinental Championship was any more important to me than just Ricochet on a weekly basis. When Ricochet comes out, my kids go, we like Ricochet. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Every wrestler doesn't need to be catered towards the, 18 to 45 male demographic. But I do understand where Ricochet is coming from. I can understand the frustration of being someone who's really good at what you do and never reaching kind of the pinnacle that business, right? Of having an arsenal of skills, but being boxed into a single dimension. Because it is a weird dynamic between the audience expectations and trying to develop a character for professional wrestling. On one hand, there's a kid who shows up every week and expects to see Ricochet do the Ricochet thing, right? But on the other hand, you have the IWC and the older fans who go, well, you know, there's no levels to Ricochet. And if you're never given a microphone, you're never given that opportunity. If you're never given the opportunity to come out and talk about adversity, you really can't build the proper character. He needs, Ricochet needs the ability to get out of character, which is that gimmick built for kids, and show some levels, show some frustration, grab a microphone and be given the opportunity to say his piece to the crowd. But I think this is a more typical problem in WWE in general, where guys are just not given the ability to show personality outside of what WWE has packaged and presented to the audience on a weekly basis. They're not giving these people the ability to get over with the crowd by connecting on a level that may be outside of just pure in-ring talent. I think WWE has to realize that even a guy like Ricochet, who's a high-flying acrobatic specialist, or a guy like Braun Strowman, who's a powerhouse technician, you can't limit those stories to those guys only doing that one thing, or this is what you end up with. You end up with guys who feel slightly slighted for not being able to have more time to develop who they really are. I think if given the chance, Ricochet could probably be a well-perceived character in the 18 to 45 demographic. I just don't think WWE sees any profit in doing that. And so I think WWE and Triple H are going to have to investigate ways to make guys like Ricochet, guys like Braun Strowman more interesting and create deeper characters for these guys. Instead of just presenting this guy's a flip guy, we give him a cool entrance. He comes out, he does a couple flips. Doesn't matter if he wins, doesn't matter if he loses. He'll be here next week. Same with Braun Strowman, right? He's going to pick guys up over their head. He's going to flip over a couple of cars, but it doesn't matter. Win or lose, Braun Strowman probably never going to be in the world, heavyweight title picture. Same with Ricochet, right? These guys are kind of, they're boxed in, and I get the frustration. I just don't necessarily know that I agree that it's a bad thing, because job security in professional wrestling is a highly, highly important thing. You guys let me know, do you agree with Ricochet? Do you think that guys that get typecast as, a high flyer or just a big man, do you think they deserve the ability to kind of flesh out their character and do more than just, be a one-off circus act? Let me know in the comments what you think.